Take a deep breath in. As you breathe in a resourceful feeling of relaxation. And as you exhale, just allow feelings of worry or tension to leave your body in your outward breath. Breathing in and breathing out, noticing that as you slow down your breathing, you're able to feel more of a sense of calm and peace. The longer you exhale, the more feelings of tension and stress are leaving your body in your outward breath. As you breathe in, I want you to imagine you're breathing a healing white light. Imagine the healing white light going in through your nose into your lungs. And this particular healing white light has the ability to heal your adrenal glands. I want you to imagine that you're breathing in that healing white light. And I want you to imagine that there is an adrenal system in your body that has been working too hard. And as you breathe in that healing white light, you can imagine it repairing and healing those adrenal glands. Your entire system that is designed to protect in case of emergency has been treating too many things like they're an emergency. So as you breathe in that healing white light, just imagine what it would be like. Almost for mechanics and engineers, doctors and tradespeople to be repairing your internal systems, fixing whatever's broken. And as you exhale, imagine a much darker color leaving your body, representing the tension, the stress, and any toxicity that's in your body, leaving your body in that outward breath, enabling you to go deeper and deeper relaxed. I want you to think of a time when you were a child playing on a computer game. Maybe you remember the house, the room, maybe the TV that the computer was connected to, a game you used to play a lot. I want you to imagine feeling the controller there in your hands. And I want you to remember that back then you would get lost in that game. That the game was your reality, and hours would pass without you even realizing. This was a form of escapism for you. Maybe there was games that you played, and those games enabled you to be significant and important. You could win, you could achieve, you could accomplish. And I want you to imagine, as you look at that screen, feeling the controller, that you're getting lost in that form of escapism, lost in your own world. And I want you to remember a time where you were 5 years old and you had been told that you did something wrong, and you were told to go to your bedroom. And I want you to imagine that you can go back in time and see that version of you. I want you to see perhaps that you were maybe upset, or just by yourself thinking. And when you can see that younger version of you, perhaps just 5 years old, all on your own, just let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine that you've got the ability to go back in time to that moment in time as you are now. Because that child lacked a role model. It lacked an older person to give them recognition and encouragement, love and support. And I want you to imagine you're going all the way back in time to that moment where you're in the room with that child. And I want you to introduce to that child that you are them from the future. And they might doubt it to begin with. And I want you to do what you would do to convince them that you are them. Maybe telling them what their favourite thing is. Maybe what football team they support. What their favourite game is. Until this child that's just 5 years old is absolutely convinced that you are them from the future. And when that child accepts that, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to tell this small child, the 5-year-old version of you, that you're proud of them. And maybe they've got a confused face, but I want you to tell them why you're proud of them. You're proud of that they were able to find their way in the world despite a lack of recognition and encouragement. They didn't have any role models, good people that they could make decisions from. You're proud because this child had to find their own way in the world. You're proud because this child had to deal with more adversity and more challenges than the average child would normally face. I want you to tell this child that you believe in them. You're not just proud of them, but you believe that they are capable of good things, important things. And again, they're not used to hearing nice words, so they might be defensive. They might try and reject these words, brush them off, but persist. Tell this child that you know you can believe in this child because you were that child. And I want you to imagine streaming your proudest achievements from your mind into the mind of this child. So this child has a glimpse of things that it didn't know was possible for them. I want you to tell this child that you are there to support them. I want you to ask this child what their ambitions are. What people, even as 5 years old, they look up to. Just tell them that there's no reason why you can't achieve amazing things, to do things in life that would exceed your expectations. But I want you to give this child advice because you know what this child goes through. You know the pitfalls, the problems, the issues in their future, and they don't. So I want you to share with this child advice that you know that if you would have had that same advice back then, would have really helped you in your life. And when the child has accepted that advice, let me know by nodding your head. But I also want you to give this child a resource. And maybe that resource is self-belief, or inner strength, or confidence. And I want you to imagine giving that resource almost like it's a present wrapped up in wrapping paper. This isn't a physical gift. It's an internal resource that will help them. And once this child has received this gift, see them taking it to their chest and absorbing that resource and seeing their facial expressions change as you identify that this resource that you've given them has now been integrated into them. But this child also has a gift for you. Because back then, this child had a level of health, perhaps sleeping habits, perhaps qualities back then that you've lost connection with. So in the same way that you've given this child a gift, the child has a gift for you. Imagine receiving this gift and also absorbing it into you. Almost like you're trading playing cards. You've given the child a resource, and the child has given you a resource. And then tell this child that it's time for you to go, but that you're always there. If this child ever needs someone to talk to, if it needs help, if it's dealing with problems, you can always come back and help this child. And that you will visit again soon in the future. Then I want you to imagine giving this child a hug. Perhaps the first proper hug this child has ever had. Feel like you're giving genuine love and connection and affection to this child. But a hug is a two-way street. You are hugging the child, but the child is also hugging you. And feel how good it feels to rebuild a connection with yourself. It's time to leave that place. And I want you to travel to the future, perhaps 5 years in the future, maybe you're 10 years old. And again, you see yourself alone in a bedroom, all by yourself. Maybe you've been told you have to be there because you've done something that other people can see as trouble or naughty or bad behavior. And when you're in that room, seeing yourself as perhaps 10 years old, let me know by nodding your head. You're now in the room, seeing that 10-year-old version. Child sees you and you see the child, and the child is happy to see you again because you are this strong male role model that this child has been lacking. This time I want you to greet the child with a hug, and I want you to ask how things are going, but a genuine question. What problems are they dealing with in life at this age? What are their worries? What are their concerns? What are the issues that they need help with? And of course, this was your life, so you can help in a way that no one else can help. And imagine giving this child the tips, the advice, the encouragement that they need to deal with whatever their challenges are at that point in their life. And again, I want you to tell this child that they are important. They're significant. They're mentally strong and they're smart. They're capable of important, significant things. And perhaps at this age, this child had a belief that was untrue and unhelpful. And I want you to let this child know that they believe something that if they continue to believe that thing, it's going to cause problems later in their life. And when you've identified what that belief is, let me know by nodding your head. But knowing what you now know, you knew that that belief wasn't useful and certainly wasn't true. And I want you to give all the evidence to this child as to why this is such a bad thing to believe, that it's simply not useful, not helpful. And then to suggest an alternative belief. And maybe this child believes that they're not capable of anything, that they're not worthy of respect or affection, that they're not smart or capable, or whatever else this child may believe at this age, and then explain to them just why that isn't true. Until this child believes the direct opposite. And suddenly you can see a form of self-belief that they have that you never had at that age. And when you feel that you've helped this child to change a belief, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Tell this child that you love them, you're proud of them, that you know they are destined for great things. And tell them you're always there if they need any help. If they've got into trouble, they need advice. All they have to do is to let you know, and you can be back there in a moment. It's time to leave, and I want you to give this 10-year-old version of you a hug. And the hug is an expression of the love that you have for yourself that you didn't receive back then, but you needed. And as you receive that and give that, notice that your mood is changing, that you feel different. Say goodbye to this 10-year-old version of you. And then go forward into the future to a time perhaps where you were at school and you were excluded from a class, put on your own in some place, left on a table all by yourself. And when you can think of a time like that, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to imagine that you're there, next to this child, perhaps 12 or 13 years old. And notice how happy they are to see you. But they're older now, so they might give you a handshake, different style of hug. But the respect is there from you to them and them to you. And again, just check in with them. How's life? How's school? And ask them about what they dream of for their future. Because one of the things that's so important to a child is a compelling vision of the future. Too many children, especially boys, just drift through life with no plan, no self-belief, just drifting from one thing to another thing. But I want you to ask this 12 or 13-year-old version of you, what do they really want? And I want you to be encouraging, supportive, and help them to think that train of thought through, so they start to entertain the idea that yes, it is possible for them to set goals, to make plans, to believe that they are capable of doing things, that they don't buy into this idea that everyone else is telling them that they're no good and nothing good will happen for them. And notice that the more encouragement you give this child, it's almost like giving sunshine and rainwater to a plant that's been left in the dark. It starts to come back to life. You can see the body language of this child becoming more confident, There may have been a bravado to this child, but you know and the child knows it wasn't confidence. It was attention seeking. It was a hard shell to protect something very vulnerable and insecure. But as you give this child what it really needed, recognition, encouragement, support, and belief, true confidence is forming in this child. You're giving this child what they needed to become a man. And if this child accepts your recognition and encouragement and support and belief, let me know by nodding your head. And I want you to again stream memories from your mind of things that you've achieved, that you've accomplished, to let this child know that this is the minimum that they can expect, but they're capable of even more. And notice that this child, just knowing that good things are in their future, enables them to change their choices because they don't need the validation from others anymore in the same way. They're learning to trust themselves, that they're capable and that they're able to do things, that they are worthy, they are valuable, and they are important. Notice the way this child looks, talks, their facial expressions, it's all changed. I want you to give this 12 or 13-year-old version of you a hug again. Tell them you believe in them. It's time to say goodbye, but I want you to imagine that you don't return to the present yet. I want you to imagine that you follow the life of this boy and notice that in this timeline, in this idea of the multiverse, of infinite parallel universes, you get to see that this child, their life took a different trajectory because of the encouragement, the support, the belief that you had in them. So many different life choices, rippling through time to create a different reality. Now, their future may be different from your future, but the resources that exist in that child all the way throughout adulthood simultaneously exist in you. Feel how good it feels to tap into those resources. And as you follow your own timeline, see that certain things that made you doubt yourself, question yourself, feel unworthy, stressed or anxious all seem to disappear as these ripples through time take you all the way to the present, where you see yourself healthier, with more self-esteem and more confidence and self-belief. As you return to that present version of you, taking all these resourceful feelings with you, noticing that for all this time, breathing in that healing white light has started to heal certain systems within your body to improve health and well-being, and feel that you're now in that healthy body, feeling that the self-love that was missing in your childhood is now there. And I want you to accept that the childhood that you've created was your childhood, and act as if that was the life that you experienced. A strong male role model that gave you the recognition, encouragement, support, and belief that you needed back then. And if your unconscious accepts that suggestion to be true, let me know by nodding your head. I want you to imagine a pebble being thrown into a pond and seeing the ripples across the surface of that pond, and feel that these changes in your childhood are rippling all the way to the present. ripples through time, updating who you are, but more importantly, how you are. Feeling worthy and feeling loved by yourself, to yourself, as you're now fully in the present, tapping into those resources as you take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Just wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, get a sense that all parts are now back in the present, feeling healed, feeling loved, and feeling recognized. Starting to count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.